Iconography of editing in mental health representations in psychological horror. This presentation is a part of a written critical review. Through this research, I aim to prove the existence of a canon of visual representation in mental illness portrayals in media. The critical review mentioned discusses the theoretical parts of the research as well as literature review, listing research mentioning existence of such canon in previous writing. This presentation audiovisually presents discussed in the written piece example scenes. Most common transitions, suggesting altered states of consciousness, are dissolve and fade. They create the idea that characters disassociate from reality or place themselves within a different state of mind. This transition often accompanies hallucination sequences. Graphic relations are an effect commonly used to introduce creative associations between elements and suggest metaphors based on the connection as well as similarity or dissimilarity of imagery. They force metaphors through displaying two or more elements in the same fashion or form, introducing a subconscious creation of association between the two, encouraging the viewer to see and understand the connection. Superimposition is used to emphasize similarity, connection, or hidden message of imagery. Images are placed over each other in less opacity, creating one shot showing more than one idea or take. Often used to connect events or ideas, but in case of mental illness, they attempt to create the illusion of dizzy and slowed down vision, especially when connected with substance abuse. Montage is famous for depicting the passing of time or combining events from separate storylines, as well as emphasizing chaos or emotion through the pace of the sequence. Audio-based transitions are used to increase tension through introduction of psychological riddle element to the narrative. They are based on sound spill from one take to another. In psychological horror, J-cut is more common, as it creates engagement, expectation, and sometimes tension as the audio starts before the introduction of the next scene, allowing some time to wonder about it. Audio-based transitions are commonly used alongside smash cuts to emphasize change of setting and/or time passage. Long slider shots build up the tension as the audience is encouraged to wonder about the ending of such shots. Zoom-out shots reveal the vastness of scenes, often beginning with close-ups. Handheld camera in Suspiria, Requiem for a Dream and Midsommar introduce chaos and disorientation. This used with point-of-view shots, swish pan and tilt movement can suggest dizziness accompanying disorientation. Midsommar uses unconventional camera movement, in which the shot ends up upside down, suggesting entrance of opposing world or state. Many movies, especially A Clockwork Orange and The Silence of the Lambs, extensively use high and low angles to emphasize power. The character in Power is mainly shown from below, and his loss of authority is introduced and emphasized by increasing the high angle as they become less intimidating for both other movie characters and the audience. Over-the-shoulder shots are used to emphasize the position of characters while not viewing their actions as our own, as it is the case with point-of-view shots. With the use of over-the-shoulder, the viewer is often prompted to take the perspective of particular characters without identifying with them, for the sole purpose of viewing the situation or event from their standpoint. Point-of-view shots encourage identification of the subject, often towards whom the violence is directed. Reflections are one of the most common symbols in film. They introduce the idea of uncanny or disassociation from the environment. When a character is seen through a reflection where others are viewed normally, it suggests their distance and difference from the rest. In psychological horror, reflections often show uncanny doubles, not following the character's movements as a reflection should. A reflection can also be used as superimposition, which then highlights the relation between two characters, as was the case with a double exposure shot over glass reflection in The Silence of the Lambs. Pacing is the speed in which shots change. Many psychological horrors prefer slow-paced progression intersected with very fast action sequences. Pacing in movies is used to evoke emotions and sustain tension when there are no major events taking place. Suspenseful scenes often take over a minute, whereas the action and shock ones make use of shots between 1 second and 10 seconds on average. Combination of swishpan, arc and handled or mounted camera with distorted environments as well as use of fade or dissolve transitions, superimposition, canted angles, and sometimes time-lapse often accompanies altered states of consciousness portrayal in psychological horror. Mixed of suspenseful pacing, high and low angles, close-up, zoom in, zoom out, tilt movement, and J and L cuts were shared by majority of films viewed for this study. I conclude with a possible confirmation of the existence of a canon of mental illness portrayal in film. However, the time frame and word count allowance does not grant the sufficient number of examples that could supply a definite conclusion. This recommends further research.